All right, it's 7:30. We called the Budget Review Committee to order. We've taken attendance and have a quorum. And so roll call's been taken. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Anyone who wishes to give public comment on what's on the agenda tonight? Seeing no one. Communications.
We have one from Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services, regarding a communication providing additional context of R-25-151 amended.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication, place it on file. Unfinished business.
Before us this evening is R-25-151 amended, authorizing the mayor and the city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed $5,500,000 for the Public Works Division garage design. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the motion to recommend final passage.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to recommend final passage of R-25-151 as amended. Discussion? Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to not see any signs tonight, by the way, just wanted to say that. I have taken a tour of the DPW garages, not when the mechanics were coming in and coming out, but when I first became an alderman, I went over there and toured it. It's in bad shape. There's no doubt about that. At some point, there's going to need to be something. So I have a couple questions, but are you speaking for Director Cummings? Is he?
Director Cummings is speaking for Director
If I ask questions, okay. First question, let me get my question out of the way first, and then I have a couple other follow-ups. Okay, so we're looking at this design and incidental charges right now on this. Mm-hmm. In a few months, we could all be out of a job here, and you have a whole new board. So you're doing the design, $5 million, and then you got a whole new board that maybe isn't so, looking at it a different way maybe. And this board here could look at it a different way, I don't know yet. But say they don't want to build the garage at that point because it's 60, 70, whatever million dollars or whatever it's going to come out to. I get worried about maybe authorizing $5 million when we don't know if next year this is going to be completely shut down. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Director Cummings?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. Your point is well taken. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why staff here is working toward trying to rely on plans in these types of 5 to 10 year type planning scenarios, so we can show you the path that we're working toward and show you that we have certain goals in mind and trying to achieve consensus, not with one or two individual members, but with this body as a whole. So therefore, we have that agreement and we do have that confidence to be able to proceed with some of these major projects. That's just good public administration. Mr. Chairman, may I approach and have, because it goes to your point, Alderman Tebow, I'd like to kind of go through a couple slides that kind of illustrate some of that. So
sure.
Can we come up? Thank you. Yeah. So joining me is Joe Sullivan from Left Field, the owner's project manager, and then Keith from Harvey. Both can speak to some of the technical details. And to Alderman Tebow's point, and I put this up earlier today because I thought it would help frame the conversation. So what this graph shows you, and by the way, we're going to be presenting this again in an updated version on August 12th, so next week. Treasurer Enright and I will be before you to talk about this again, and we're going to constantly talk about this plan to make sure that there's agreement, so there's a comfort level that we're moving in the right direction, because we shouldn't be looking at this in terms of individual projects. What we should be looking at it is agreement that we have charted a course for some fiscal goals and some financial objectives, and just as long as we're in agreement on those financial objectives, we can have further conversations about what projects we want to kind of slot in where when we have the capacity. And so, again, this was shown at the June 3rd meeting, and what I'm going to do is go down to this slide, again, shown at the July 3rd meeting, and it kind of talks about, this all came from the ad hoc committee, and it shows all the prior projects approved. It showed the anticipated projects that were approved, and then it shows some of the identified projects through the ad hoc process that not approved yet, but we believe are on the horizon to be approved. And you can see right in there, we got to, assuming the 5.5 up here gets approved, it goes with the 42 down here, and all of this is working according to plan. Because why? When we're talking about selling of debt, you know, the number you need to kind of look at is we're talking about selling of debt in FY '27 of about $22-ish million. Remind you, that's underneath that $25 million target. And so we're doing that according to this plan here and how we've kind of scoped it out. Because what it shows up here is that 22 that I just talked about right there, with the current debt and the additional debt, and then all this kind of slotted in like we discussed, shows that we're right on target for what we've been discussing in terms of keeping the debt service at a manageable level. And as you can see, when we start to get into years 30, 31, really starts to drop off. There's some capacity there. And that's where, you know, you'll hear Treasurer Enright and I saying, this is where you'll be able to slot in some more projects and be able to do what it is you'd like to do if we're still staying consistent with this, you know, 25-ish million. Remind you, we added in a little bit of an inflationary factor as well, just to keep it, you know, the trend line moving up. But it stays around that overall financial objective that we talked about during that ad hoc process. And so on the 12th, we'll go into a little bit more detail. We will update this. Everything is working according to plan. It absolutely shows that we can sell the roughly 42-ish million over the 3 to 4 years that we need to, or 3 to 4 years out that we need to, not break the bank, make it all work, and accommodate these other projects to continue along the path as we've discussed. So I'm providing you this evening, providing this with you this evening just to provide context, some level of orientation. I really hope to get into it in a little bit more detail on the night of the 12th, when we'll be doing our special Board of Aldermen meeting on capital.
Follow-up? Yeah, so I had 2 follow-up questions. I mean, I don't know if that addressed the fact that we could have a new board, for the fact that, I mean, maybe this board doesn't approve it, so I don't even know, you know, what next year's board could do. But I guess what you were saying is over time, you're doing plans that hopefully, if it gets shut down next year, maybe the year after that, it does get approved. So I get that. So 2 questions I had that were addressed in public comment in the public hearing. So can you talk a little bit about 2 things? And these are the only 2. I'll just lump them together so I don't have to ask again. Talk about the bid process, and can you talk about traffic studies to West Hollis? Obviously, those trucks are going on West Hollis now, but now they would be going further up. So I don't know, you know, what the difference is, if there's a difference, and can you speak on those 2 items?
Yeah, happy to, Mayor, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead, Director Cummings.
Again, Tim Cummings, Director of Administrative Services. Last time I do this, to my left is Joe Sullivan from left field, Owner's Project Manager, and then to the right of myself is Joe Sullivan from left field, and to the right of him is Keith from Harvey. And Director Photo couldn't be here this evening. She's a little bit under the weather. She wasn't here today. She would have been here otherwise. I wanted to kind of get that out there on the record because we have this is technically a new meeting, so I wanted to make sure the record reflected as to why Director Photo wasn't here. With that being said, though, this project, to answer some of the questions that were raised earlier this evening, and also to answer the specific ones that were just raised right now by Director Tebow. This project falls under the jurisdiction of the Joint Committee on Infrastructure and Board of Public Works, which the Administrative Services Division is charged with helping administratively execute. So that's one of the reasons why you see administrative services involved with not just this project, but also the 9 Riverside project, the police, and you'd see us involved with the fire project as well, playing an administrative support role to the essential division that has care and custody or control over the asset. Director Photo is intimately familiar with the project and has been working with me hand in glove to advance this project. And she could answer all these questions that I'm about to answer right now. First and foremost, relative to the traffic study. So believe it or not, before we actually did the DPW Administrative Office building, we undertook a traffic study that thought of not just of that building, but the garage as well. So we've already done our due diligence relative to the traffic analysis and study in and around that area. But in addition to that, this project will go through the permitting process that all other municipal projects need to go through, and there'll be a site plan process where the planning department and the planning board will review this and will make the comments as necessary. That is part of design, and if we continue along with this process and project, that would be actually one of the most immediate next steps that we will be doing. But it has been looked at, it has been studied, and there are no issues to date. And we studied that before we even started the DPW Administrative Office building. Relative to the bidding process, the city of Nashua issued issued requests for proposals for construction management services. 4 groups were interviewed, and it was a competitive process. I think Harvey would tell you that. And ultimately, Harvey prevailed. They rose to the top as the most credible and responsive service and group to answer the city's call, and they were also the lowest in terms of fee and pricing. So that was one of the reasons why it earned the recommendation of the DPW and myself, and the joint committee approved the contract for their services. But it was competitively bid. It wasn't just handed to them. So hopefully that answers the bid, the process. I talked a little bit about the traffic study. I've talked a little bit about jurisdiction. One other point that was raised that I want to just touch upon, and that's the life of the building. So I heard 20 years and 30 years. So depending on the context, we are issuing bonds at a minimum of 20 years. Sometimes we issue bonds at 30 years, but we are designing this building, and we are going to be constructing this building for 50 years. I know that's what you always tell me. But 30 years or more. If we can get 30 years, we are doing something right. Ideally, we're trying to get to 50 years. And we should and will have a maintenance plan to go along with this asset. As a good steward of a capital asset like this, we need to maintain the facility. If anyone around this horseshoe has heard me talk over the last couple of years, I have talked about this. I am working towards making sure we have a comprehensive plan in place because I recognize the need for it. Thank you.
One last follow-up.
One last follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as traffic studies go, I think, and I don't know if it's run by the city or run by the state as far as like, what is a good result traffic study and what is like, oh no, this is going to cause problems. In my 4 years here, every project that's been in front of me, whether it's been Flatley over in Ward 8, which is my area, or the asphalt plant, has always come back like, yeah, traffic study says everything's fine. So I think whatever we're looking at traffic-wise, we might have to, and again, I don't know if it's state-run, city-run, but I think the traffic studies themselves have to be tougher, I think, to really understand, because even with the asphalt plant, if that wasn't going to cause more problems to the roads, I don't know what was. And yet they all come back saying great. So I always get a little nervous with the traffic studies, but.
Mr. Chairman, actually, Mr. Sullivan would like to speak.
Mr. Sullivan?
Mr. Chair, thank you. It's a great question. And traffic studies are a lot more involved than just, a group going out there looking at the traffic flow throughout they look at actually the program associated with the Department of Public Works and the traffic associated with the landfill. All of those calculations are put in a parameter. Then they go and evaluate the width of the road, the lanes on the roads, the access, the egress going into it, the exit points, and they come up with a strategic plan to see whether it works or it doesn't work. And even with that study, there may be improvements that may be required, a third lane for a turning radius to get into a facility. So it's not as an easy rubber stamp blanket saying that the road's ready to go. They're going to do a complete analysis on what, the Division of Public Works in and out, hours of operations, hours of, like, whether they leave at 7, come back at noontime, leave at 3 o'clock, all of those in any of the activities around the parameter. And that goes with the schools and any businesses within that parameter. So it's a lot more involved than, just a guy standing out there counting cars as they go by, just to put it in perspective.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. Just so, to explain to my fellow aldermen, I speak now as chairman of the Committee of Infrastructure. And I heard in public comment, I'm not really defending the committee, but I'm going to tell you what we did. We have done due diligence with this. A lot of the stuff that is being brought up, and I can see where you would bring it up, because maybe you do attend our meetings, maybe you do read the minutes of our meetings, maybe you don't. But I can see where you have the concerns and questions. But believe me, this is not our first rodeo, not the first building we have built in this city. And so we are doing all our due diligence. Like Mr. Sullivan said, the traffic study was already done with the administration building. Why waste additional taxpayers' dollars to get the same results that we already have? So it made common sense to envelope that into the total project. Now, maybe somebody in public comment says, the old facility that they're currently in now, please go down and take a peek at it. It doesn't really, in my opinion, I'd be very surprised if it meets OSHA standards for mechanics who are working today on these vehicles. There's pits involved. You can't have pits anymore. The new facility will have hydraulic lifts and ceiling height so the trucks can come up much, much better, the way a modern BPW needs to do. But it isn't a modernization. Look at that old public garage. I mean, Director Cummings, how long it's been there? Probably, 50 years maybe? Mm-hmm. So we got 50 years out of that building. Now let's look at the next 50, which is a brand-new facility. Number two, our committee did look at the current land that the BPW garage. If you look at that total facility, they're kind of cramped in there. And when I go down to work out at the Y, I see BPW equipment in Y's area of parking. This will afford them. The fire department has been very gracious on board with this project, have moved, they've got to move their training facility with our assistance too, and to make room for this total project. And so it's going to be very good. And it meets the needs of any efficient operation. Those of you in private industry that knows if you have a business in New York, but your factory is in Hong Kong, you have some difficulties, maybe in communications and everything. This is going to be enveloped into one total facility with the administration building and next door. In other words, in theory, the mechanic could walk over and see Director Photo and say, hey, we need a new starter for number 7. I don't know. I'm sure she's not going to be bothered with the starters. But it could happen. So it does work out. But the other thing about the old facility, let's look at that. What's got to happen? I don't think we're going to leave it vacant and let wolves and bears and bison roam on that particular property. I think it has a definite value worth. I don't know what it's going to lead into. Go down and see what's in the adjacent adjacent property. Not letting any cats out of the bag, but maybe 2 sheets of ice in the city our size might be one thing that we might need to discuss. So there's nothing that my committee had looked at, nothing but betterment to the city, modernization. And I'll say it again, I'm very disappointed as chairman of infrastructure. Thank you, Madam President, for the job, and I would like to continue doing it. But, however, I have been going and chasing everything from the spending caps of the past. That garage, we should have had this discussion probably 5, 10 years ago, maybe. Do I have to remind you about water coming into the Hunt building through the windows that should have been repaired a long time ago? You know, fire stations, their roofs are just leaking, started last week. No, it didn't, you know. There's been a lot of catch-up that we have done, and I've worked very much with Director Cummings and with the mayor on this. It's sad that we had to do it, but if you're saving money on one end, you got to pay a lot more at today's construction costs in the future. So if this does not fly, the BPW garage needs to be replaced at some point in the future. But if we activate and do it now and approve of this bond, we're doing that today's construction costs, saving what it could inflate to. And we all know what's on the horizon on inflation, maybe, you know, in the future. This could really enhance and get the best bang for the dollar for our taxpayers. So I'm going to really support this. I know you have something else that you might want to show us, Director Cummings, but I would just like to say this. The infrastructure, the Joint Infrastructure Committee with the BPW board, their commissioners, we have done due diligence with this and really looked at it, and it's got to be a definite enhancement to the facility. And it's the way you want to conduct the business at hand in the year 2025 and going 50 years forward in 2075. So it's the starts today. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question on the, I'm going to ask you to break out your crystal ball. Looking at the funding, I'm looking at the capital improvements plan for fiscal '26. I know up on your previous slides you had contemplated 42.5. I'm just going to use 40 because it's easier, and that's what's on here. This is 40 million would be the funding request for fiscal '26. Obviously, that's beyond the 7.7 that we would be at, assuming this gets passed. Is it your anticipation that you'll be asking for the authorization for that bonding in the 15 million and change increments that you had shown on a previous slide, or would you be asking for that 40 million this year?
Good, Director Cummings?
If I may, yeah, if I could, excellent question. And I'm just going to pull this up. So I'm going to answer your question very simply in the sense that I would recommend always that whatever contract we enter into, we have a bona fide source of funds. I believe we will be entering into a contract with Harvey sometime in the spring for something in the range of $40 million. Therefore, I would be making the request for $40-ish million to answer your question. But just because you authorize it does not mean that we're going to spend all of it right away and we sell the debt over a period of time, and that's what this kind of shows. Assuming we authorize it, and I think technically we are going to authorize it in the spring, but it will take effect July 1st of 2027 because we're going to do it to correlate with the operating budget. So we'll do it with FY27's operating budget in the spring, but it would take effect July 1st of 2026, which would be the FY27 operating budget. Debt service payments really wouldn't start until FY28. So I just kind of, I've had long conversations with Treasurer Enright to ensure that we're sequencing this out, and we believe we would be selling for in and around $14-ish million over that 3-year period.
Follow-up?
Well, you definitely anticipated my next question, because we certainly don't have $40 million in the cap this year. I guess I'm still a little apprehensive about pushing it towards next year's cap, because we did that earlier this year. At the tail end of fiscal '25, we put a lot of future dated bonds into effect, and we did that knowing that the 22 million, I think, that we had in cap space going into '26 was more of an imaginary number, and it was more realistically close to 13 million. So I think that definitely bears consideration as we look at this. Alderman Tebow's point comes up as well, that we anticipate entering into that contract and authorizing that money in the spring, where, looking around the room, well, two of us will be here. I don't have a crystal ball, so I couldn't say the same for everybody else. It'd be nice. But nevertheless, those are some of the considerations that are swirling in my head. I don't want to belabor the point too much in the presentation, but.
Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you. Going back to the amendment on this resolution, I was looking at the communication that you provided, and I was curious to know, in the minutes, in the meeting, you said that you were going to re-refer it to committee because you thought it was going to be 4.5 million. What happened? Why is it still 5.5 and not 4.5?
Dr. Cummings?
Yes, thank you. I said that it could be as low as 4.5 if the body so decided to amend it down. That is, I think, something that we could comfortably do if need be. I would recommend 5.5 still, because I think there are some expenses that we don't necessarily know that we may need authorization for. We won't necessarily spend it, but having that in our pocket, as an example, early release packages, to avoid some costs later on down the road, tariffs, or just, long lead time items. Those would be, it would be good to be able to, have that ability and flexibility, and that was the rationale for the 5.5.
Follow-up?
How much debt have we authorized so far?
If I may, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
go ahead.
I guess in total, in the city, I'm going to say $23-ish million.
So far this year?
Something like that.
So this will put us over the target of 25? This will put us at 28?
No. So.
Help me understand that.
Because just because you authorize it now does not affect the debt service, because that's sold in future years.
Okay, so let me refine my question. How much debt have we authorized for fiscal year '26? When we look at that ad hoc plan,
Yep.
because I do understand that some of these resolutions have us selling the bonds in different fiscal years.
Yep.
What have we resolved to bond in fiscal year '26 that will get sold this year?
This isn't going to be absolutely exact, but I believe in FY '26 we sold or planning to sell, something like $23-ish million. And don't hold me to that exact number, but it's in that range.
And does that 23,758 include this 5.5 million?
No, because this wouldn't take effect until 27 or 28. I think this one would be 27. Hold on one second. 27, I think, is when we're anticipating selling a good portion of it. I think that's 3-ish million in 27.
Okay.
Which, to be clear, would be this fall we would sell. So we sell in the fall, we would sell in the fall of '26 to affect the debt service of '27. Of course, we would only sell this if we were authorized to, but assuming we would, it is accommodated in the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Ryan, did you have?
Yeah, I did. And, Mr. Chairman, I would just like, just more like a comment to help maybe ease the fears of some of my fellow aldermen who have expressed concerns that it is the will of this board and not the will of future boards, and it should be one particular board not to really handcuff future boards. But this isn't handcuffing. This is looking down through straight of your nose into a futuristic Nashua. Now, I'm sure if some people aren't here, you know, that are currently sitting, maybe new people come in, may throw their arms around this project. I can't guarantee it. But if they are good people, care about the city, want to see growth and investment in their infrastructure, this is a very sellable project. And so, yeah, I can understand for some of us, I will be one next election, so all my fan club, if you want to get rid of me, I'm stuck here for 2 more years. But the thing is, I want to treat myself as a lame duck, particularly when it comes to projects that are coming up, that's got to have a 50-plus year life cycle, you know? So don't think until like November. I encourage to think 2075. You know, I won't be here when they close the building, but I hope to have our names from, on the plaque, because that's something to be proud of in a way. Shows that we cared and invested into the city and its infrastructure, something very positive. So take strength, I hope. Thank you.
Alderman Senate? I'm all set. Okay. Anyone else? Alderman Tebow?
Can he show, thank you, Mr. Chair, did you want to show that presentation?
If I could, if there's an interest, Mr. Chairman, in lead up to tonight, we heard some conversation at previous meetings about, what's the value of a DPW garage, a fleet maintenance facility, and so I asked Mr. Sullivan to help us explain that. This is a little bit of a teaser or a preview of something we're going to show at a joint committee meeting. So those of you who are on a joint committee, you're going to see this again. So, FYI, but nonetheless, I thought it would be appropriate to have Mr. Sullivan talk a little bit about why storing vehicles indoors makes sense. And he put a couple slides together. It'll address some of the questions that were asked at previous meetings.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, I'm Joe Sullivan. I'm from Left Field. We're the owner's project manager. I haven't had the pleasure to meet the individual. I want to give you a little history about who I am and what I've done. I've been an owner's project manager and in the field for over 35 years. I've had the pleasure of working with a number of districts throughout the New England district, and I've done 9 division Department of Public Works facilities, and it gave me the insight and the ability to actually understand, the Department of Public Works and what they do and what they do for a city. Believe it or not, they're the first people that have to be on the road before even emergency responders are out there to correct things. So providing, what I did note over my last 20 years is that Department of Public Works are typically the ones that get service the last for, facilities and equipment. And it's a shame because they're the ones that, as I indicated, do a number of different things so everyone else can enjoy the roads and be safe on the roads. But that being said, I worked with a couple of great engineering firms, and the questions that you're asking aren't questions that aren't asked from other towns and cities without hesitation. So we put together, there were some comprehensive questions regarding, why store vehicles indoors? I mean, we all have garages, is that fair to say, that we keep cars in there, and there's a reason for it. It's even more predominant for vehicles for Department of Public Works. And that goes from a vac truck all the way to, their plow trucks and their maintenance equipment. You can go to the next slide. So what we did is we put together a number of different key points as to why store the vehicles inside. A majority of it is, if you look at this picture, just the mechanic working on that truck outside, in inclement weather, it's an accident waiting to happen. I mean, you're looking at it, he could slip and fall, and what I found is an average lost work is 3 to 6 months on an injury from a Department of Public Works. So having the vehicle indoors, you wouldn't have the, clearing of ice, protection of equipment, stormwater control. I mean, that's huge. When the trucks are, full of salt or other materials, and it's, you're getting the moisture wicking off of it, it goes into your street basins, and we got to try to capture that. A cost-effective of operations, efficient of operations. When someone's able to come to work at 6:30, get ready to go out there, and the equipment's already, warm, ready to drive, and get out there, your efficiencies of the operations improve. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, safety, like employee safety. If you look at some of the pictures of this equipment being stored outside, can you imagine the effectiveness of an employee coming in at a reasonable hour to start, having to spend whatever time it takes, whether it's 15 minutes or an hour to get a piece of equipment ready to be able to utilize it? Protection of the equipment. How often have you left a piece of equipment outside only to realize the deterioration that could actually happen to it? And it happens frequently. Just the operation of trying to maintain it. I mean, nothing worse than bringing a piece of equipment that was outside, froze, the fuel lines froze. It takes you half a day to just get them thawed, the fuel changed out there, just to have it utilized. You can go to the next slide. The protection of equipment, salt is probably one of the biggest deterrents on any piece of equipment with the Department of Public Works. The under framing, the beds of the trucks, even the deterioration of, sanders and any other equipment. It's evident based on your replacement. I wish Lisa was here because she could probably really indicate how often and how regularly she's looking for money for the replacement of that equipment. It just helps for the duration and the longevity of that. Indoor storage does a lot more. And pollution control, I've seen too many trucks where they tilt the bed up to keep the water out of it so that, it doesn't rust out. Any material in there, any, off material from service leaks out onto the asphalt and main grounds and then goes into the infrastructure. Having them indoors and having a system that collects it indoors and you're able to service it only protects the environment and the material and surface around it. Cost of construction of storage, the cost effectiveness of building it or not building it. Construction, maintenance, and operation obviously is a cost associated, but a cost associated with exterior storage, increased vehicle maintenance, decrease in life expectancy of vehicles, non-productive labor hours to try to get it ready, operational impacts, and employee and safety environmental issues. Those are just some of the parameters. I mean, I'm touching it at 70,000 feet, but if you've had an opportunity to go to a district that does not have vehicle storage to the vehicles that do, the city and districts thrive at making sure the longevity of the material lasts longer. You can go to the next one. We did a in-vehicle, study, and a town purchased a large dump truck. Remaining 2 vehicles were stored outside. 2 vehicles stored inside were removed from service early because of deterioration. The ones inside remained in service for more years and with suitable condition reached its service life. How often, there's a set time that a dump truck should last within the city's needs. That doesn't always happen. And at the end of the day, once it's reached its service life, you can actually auction them off. Half the time, most districts that store outside end up having to just, basically send it to a wrecking yard and just try to sell it for the metal that's there. And then the last slide I have, just like a warm start versus a cold start, a vehicle stored indoors versus a vehicle stored out. If you want to go to the media slide.
Yeah.
That's an indoor vehicle starting inside. You can see very little exhaust coming out of it. It's like off gas, and they're not fighting to run. The efficiency is so much faster, and it's just night and day versus, you know, storing outdoors. And I'm going to show you the outdoor one next. And it's actually so true telling just watching that next video. And I think, yeah, here it is. Here's the cold start. You can see the motor struggling. And it's actually going to stall because it's so cold. In most of the outdoor facilities, they plug them in. It's a block warmer so that they're able to actually start the truck in the cold. But if you look at those conditions, the wear and tear that you're putting on a motor, basically stored outdoors, I want to say it's 2/3 worse than having it indoors, based on longevity and serviceability of those vehicles. And I just wanted to give you a 70,000 vision as to why it's necessary for and essential for vehicles to be stored indoors.
Questions? Debo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, two questions. The first one's a simple one. How many bays short are we currently to cover all our trucks?
That's a great
That's a
question.
great question. I would have to look that up. But
More than 5? Okay.
a lot.
Oh, yeah.
All right, and thank you. And my second question is, I had asked about the other garage we were talking about, the wastewater one, is a cost-benefit analysis. I mean, obviously, we know the benefits. I mean, the simple, yeah, if you leave something out in the rain or the snow,
Right.
it's going to rust, whatever. But I was always curious of how much money can we save in the long term by protecting these vehicles? Is it going to be better than, or worse than, spending the $40 million to do this? I'm assuming it would, but, any private company that's doing something where they have to pay money for some benefit that you can't, touch right now, would want some kind of cost-benefit analysis. Is there something like that? Is there a ballpark?
So that's a great question, and to give you a clear and concise answer, when you keep any type of equipment in service longer, you're saving money, obviously. That being said, I'm sure that I could probably dig up some analysis to show, some cost benefits from, and the city does a great job. For what you have and what you try to protect, Lisa's and her team do a great job to try to protect the longevity of the equipment. However, when you don't have the right facility and you're makeshifting, and I was talking about pre-engineered buildings. Back in the day, we built a Morton building or a pre-engineered building. That was the structure we were going to use to cover the buildings. Those were 20, 25-year buildings, and we still have them 50 years later. The building that we're proposing and designing, and the material and the durability of this building is going to be twice what a pre-engineered building is all about. Now, we are using cost-effective measures as components as pre-engineered within this facility, but we're doing it strategically so that, as we move forward, it's going to house the majority of the fleet within that storage area, but still we have the vehicle maintenance and the other facade that we're building into it as more durable components and encompassing that vehicle storage. So you're building it as to one facility. Your maintenance, your communications between divisions are all going to be so much more essential and more effective on a cost savings measure.
I assume you wouldn't be in business if it didn't make a benefit out of it, so thank you, I appreciate that.
All right.
Alden Wiltshire?
Thank you. So, excuse me, about a dozen years ago, maybe, I went with the prior administration, as was brought up in public comment, to Lexington, Mass., where they had done this. And I would be really curious to find out from the point that they built their garage and stored their vehicles in there, what their outcome is. Yeah.
I can find that out.
It was really, really impressive.
Yeah.
I was so impressed with what they had done down there.
Yep.
Yeah, Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you, and I appreciate you putting the slide deck together, but as you were going through, I mean, it's right there. Because, you know, you talked about average lost time of 3 to 6 months of an injured employee. Okay, there's value there. What is that?
Right.
So that was a question I had. How much time is saved? That has value. How much life does this add to the equipment? What is that worth? So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to do the calculus, because when I don't play an alderman, I have to sell capital equipment that's about $2 million. And I have to sit across a table from a CEO and a CFO and explain to them that this machinery is going to pay for itself in X years.
Right.
Because you don't have to hire 5 more welders. It's going to increase your output and your throughput, and you're going to be able to invoice that work, and you're going to be able to pay for it and keep your supply chain moving. So it's almost right there. And I think that if we're going to spend $45 to $50 million over the life of the building, at what point
The payback.
do we hit the black?
Yeah.
And we say, okay, in year 10, this building is paid for itself. So that to me is, and I don't know if I'm just pulling numbers
Yeah.
out of the air. But that's the piece for me. That's the bridge that helps me understand this better.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Those, you know, you're spot on. And the next step, I mean, I put these slides together just as to why it should be stored indoors. The next step is an analysis depending on how many pieces of equipment that you currently have, the longevity, life expectancy of each of those pieces of equipment. And you can actually get a payback analysis done of that. And that's something that, you know, I would sit with Lisa and look at your equipment, look at the life expectancy of each of those pieces of equipment. A loss, you know, depending on the injury, 3 to 6 months is an average to get someone back. It could be longer, depending on the deficiency of their injury, or it could be shorter. So it's a work in progress. I'm just trying to show that an average, and I've done studies on it, where there's just an average work injury on a slip and fall is anywhere between 3 and 6 months. That value, I would have to look at who that individual is and the time loss. And it affects one step more. During the absence of that individual, you didn't hire another person. What does that affect on the other employees
have
or
to
the
pay
efficiencies?
overtime.
Those are all things that would have to be calculated in. In addition to that is the maintenance. If I wish, you know, and I'm sure there's information that I could probably draw off of, is what is the maintenance efficiencies from having it indoors versus the maintenance efficiencies to having it outdoors, and what's that value of budgeted line item? So I agree with you 100%. I think if you're looking for that information, more analytic information has to be given to me to be able to really calculate that out for you. But I can tell you the payback factor, if you're looking at a 50-year, we could probably come up with what the payback factor would be
No,
on
that's
that.
good, I appreciate it, good
Okay.
start, thanks.
I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Couple, what?
I was going to say one thing.
Couple things. There's got to be a significant savings in our SURF account. If you can extend any vehicle a year or 2 or 3, you know, and these vehicles that we have aren't, you know, $29. They're pretty expensive. Some of them over $1 million. And the longer we can keep them, the better. And when they're in the elements and then sit in salt and sit outside in the rain and every other thing, it eats on them. And you know, dump trucks, you know, you always see them, they rust out because they're outside. And if we could get a few more years out of all of our vehicles, I mean, if you just did that analysis on SURF, it would add up to, I'm sure, well over $1 million a year.
One of you just triggered something that I was talking with Lisa related to it. And it's not just the weather, it's mice, rodents. I mean, all of that has an overall effect, and that's the challenge of trying to figure out, having them indoors, where's the beneficial, breakdown of where the payback's there. And one of the things that I've noted in a lot of Department of Public Works is that how much maintenance is it to maintain or to keep it running for the division to utilize when it's outdoors? How much more difficult it is to try to service versus having vehicles stored indoors? Like taking a starter or taking any component off of a truck that's stored outdoors, the rust capabilities, just as you indicated, the weather effects on that, the efficiencies are better. So your equipment's out on the road a little faster in, as far as maintaining it. So I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah, and, I have a little experience on making vehicles last longer when I was 30-plus years in logistics. And the equipment that I was dealing with were $300 million to $1 billion a piece, and when you're designing an aircraft that's $300 million a copy and you're putting it on the deck of a carrier in salt water, if you don't design it to last, you're in real trouble.
Yeah.
And keeping it from deteriorating in that environment, we did a lot of analysis on that, so it's near and dear to my considerations. I mean, any business case analysis is going to have to make some assumptions. So, you'd have to look at the data and you can use empirical data to make your assumptions. But it's going to come out, with significant savings. And, if we were saving, say, $2 million a year on SURF, it would eat this money up fairly quickly. And all those other things that you mentioned. So, and the other thing I wanted to mention was, you were talking about lead time. When we were building the McCarthy School, it was just before COVID. And Harvey went ahead and bought our steel ahead of time out of Canada, and we stored it. We saved a heck of a lot of money, And, they do a great job at buying things at the right time. And they've done a great job for our schools. All of the projects have finished on time and under budget. So I give a lot of credit to them. Did you have something, Alderman Bryan?
Yeah, I did. One thing, I loved your video of indoors versus outdoors, being on the fire department. Starting from a warm environment is a lot different. I did work as a greaser for a trucking company, and one of the things I had to do was go out there in a cold night with the battery cart, push them and get them all lit when the head mechanic called me up. I loved it. It was on the clock all night, because I had to watch the little donkeys while they were roaring away. But it's a big thing, and you got to look at it. That truck right now with that exhaust, that isn't moving. Not for a while. They got something like 25 to 32 quarts of oil in it. And that oil got to heat up and warm up before you move it, unless you're going to blow the engine, So you add more time to the point that Mr. Sullivan was making. And then the other thing is, I think it's an apple and orange look at the BPW or the wastewater garage and this particular garage. They are kind of in a way, yes, under the wing of BPW, but they are different organizations. And I just want you to know the need and want for the new garage out there is more driven by permits and EPA requirements. It's a very congested tract of land that they got. And the EPA will come in and say, in order to enhance for better quality for what we put back into the Merrimack River, we need to build something else to enhance it. There's, I think, Mr. Cummings, is there somewhat of discussion on that pending? So, to get the land, moving on that garage and then go into another areas. The garage could be floatable, but this would enhance that particular project. So that's why I say it's an apple and oranges, and that needs to be discussed when that comes up. But it did come up to us already before in infrastructure, so thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, the other two things is Manchester, several years ago, built a similar garage and have found significant savings in their equipment. The other place that built a garage maintenance facility was the Pennachuck. I don't know if anybody's ever been up there to see that facility. It's pretty modernistic. It's keeps all of their vehicles lasting a much longer time, which in essence saves us money because we're the owners of the Pennachuck. But so the concept of this type of garage to save the city money and improve efficiency goes a long way. And, you know, people sometimes don't realize the importance of DPW. We'll go down to Massachusetts right now where that trash company's on strike. You know, it's pretty important. So anyway, I think this is a good first step in this project, and I'm sure that the designers and the construction managers will move ahead smartly if we approve this. All right, if there's no other questions, the motion on the floor is to recommend to the full board final passage of our 25-151 is amended. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Sullivan,
No.
Alderman Senate,
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Tebow.
Tebow, excuse me, I'm
I
sorry.
just want to make sure it was for the record.
Yeah, no, you are correct, I stand corrected.
I'm going to
Thank
vote
you, sir.
yes.
You vote yes, thank you. Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien votes yes, Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1.
Yep.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
General discussion, Alderman Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did vote in favor of this tonight. I don't want to hold up the design phase and
Thank you.
all costs there too. But Alderman Wilshire brought up a interesting point, and whenever somebody brings up something like that, I gotta dive in nose first. And I went looking for some information on that garage that you had referenced down in Lexington, Mass. And I was able to find a real nice history of it, broken out in a PDF. It looks like it would have been what they would have presented to their voters and to their board of selectmen, because I think they operate as a town. But regardless, it was a really nice breakout, real easy to digest. I just kind of flipped through it. But all the costs broken out, what this cost, what this was, how we got there, you know, the debt authorization. It looked like they even did a debt exemption like we did last year. Even going so far as to have a chart broken up into 5-year increments of what the tax impact would have been. And I think that bears consideration when we take on these big projects, because we know this is going to, we already know it's going to be more than 40 million. I think it's going to be more than 42.5. I'm looking in my imaginary crystal ball. I think this is going to get more expensive before it gets less expensive. That's just the way of the world. That's not the fault of anybody in this building or anything. But to be able to have something like that, I think would make this a lot more digestible to not only us, but to the public. We had a really good discussion last night, and last night in discussing the Keefe Auditorium, the phrase education came up, because regardless of what we do with the Keefe, we're going to have to pitch that to our constituents, to the voters. And something like what Lexington had, for me to find in the span of 5 minutes, I think would go a long way here in Nashville. I think people are asking for it. I think it would save us a lot of time and money and probably frustration in the email inbox. So I just wanted to put that out there for consideration. And, you know, I guess we'll see what comes out on the other side.
Director Cummings.
Yes, thank you. Could you send me that document?
Love to.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Because if we could emulate something like that, happy to do it. I'm very familiar with the Lexington project. And we actually, for the record, our architect and designer that we have for this project is the exact same architect that did the Lexington project. So, so we should be able to get some of that information.
HKT?
Yeah, HKT.
Okay, great.
Is our record. I also would encourage folks to participate in the joint committee process. We try to go over some of these details at the joint committee process, and I welcome participation at that committee level where we could get into some of these details if there's a member of the Board of Aldermen that's interested. And then, Ms. Chairman, my last comment, I don't want anyone to think that the total project cost for this DPW is $42 million. It's not. We've already discussed at the joint committee, it's something in and around 54 million. 42 is only debt. So, and so I just want to be clear, I don't want people to walk away from here with the thinking of the total project cost was 40-ish million dollars, because that would be a misnomer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You have a follow-up? Or,
Yeah, well,
I guess, Eric.
I just have something to say, if I may. The other thing to take into consideration, projects that I and Director Cummings and the Infrastructure Committee have worked on, look at our history. I wish my arms were long enough to pat myself in the back, but we came in under budget. And I think we could do this with this particular project, too. Alderman Dowd did help out on that, and Alderman Dowd has a good record sometimes under budget with the schools. So, you know, the crystal ball thing, yeah, you don't know. Granted, I hear you. You know, there are people in Washington that are just plumb crazy right now, but I don't know what's going to happen with tariffs and steel that you would need with the project. But in traditional values, Nashua, the Infrastructure Committee, has built its buildings and given quite a bit of change back. How much did we give back, Director Cummings, if I may, through the chair, ask you, on the administration building?
Just over $2 million.
Yeah, $2 million back. That's a back pat right there to me. Yeah, thank you.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as general discussion, I voted yes too, but with a little, just the same trepidation I'm sure others have, because it's a lot of money, and, there's no guarantee that this board's going to be the way it is today in feeling the way they do about public works projects, and it could easily go the other way, and if it does in November, I'm pretty sure that people would vote this down. So I'm still probably going to vote yes at the full board, but I definitely wanted it to get to the full board and have everybody have a chance to vote on it. I think it's important. If you look at these other cities and towns that have these things, if you look at Pennachuck or Eversource that put their trucks in buildings, and they're private companies because they want to save money, right? Because they don't want to spend any extra money. They want the profits. For us, it's about taking that money and putting it back into the city. So the more we can save on this type of stuff, the more we can do in other areas of the city. So I think it's important that we do this. It's always about timing. Is it the right time to do this? Do we do it now? Do we do it 2 years from now? So that's always a concern. But I think, seeing how you got the debt laid out, and I know it's good for us to carry some debt, and I think that's where people get a little worried, because I don't think people understand that having debt is okay. It's as long as you don't go over that imaginary line of now we're in trouble debt, right? So that's why I supported it. Every project we have coming before us, it's got to be kind of more of a look at, because things are getting more expensive, and so it's not just an easy rubber stamp. We do have to think about them. They're hard decisions. We all have to decide for ourselves what we think our constituents want, and it's not an easy decision. I know some people think, oh, we're just rubber stamping, but it's not. I think of these things when I'm at home. It's not like I just come in here and go, I'm just going to vote yes or vote no or whatever. And I think that's probably the same for all of us. So, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Public comment?
Good evening. My name is Paula Johnson again. First of all, Alderman O'Brien, I just want to say, you know, when they talked about the West Hollis Street corridor, you never attended the 2 meetings we had with Mr. Hudson. And we know that there's a traffic problem, but we don't have the money to fix it. So maybe the next meeting, you're an alderman at large, you'll be happy to join us because you live in Ward 9, that abuts Ward 5. And if you travel West Hollis Street, especially at certain times during the day, you will see the traffic is massive. So I will personally invite you, because I sent an email to the full board, and I asked the alderman at large, why didn't anybody attend? You're an alderman at large, you represent us all, not just the ward alderman. So I'll get through that. So the next thing is, I know somebody who used to work for DPW, and I'm allowed to text because I'm not an elected official, so my information here, not like what happened the other night. So I asked some very important questions here. First of all, we need to know the number of bays that we're going to have in the new building, because not only do we have diesel trucks, we have CNG trucks. And I asked about that, and the answer was CNGs need to be stored in a totally different building. Now, this is a mechanic who works on big trucks. Because it's natural gas, so they have to have ventilation, emergency alarms. That's going to cost a lot of money to park all the CNG vehicles in a totally different building. So, you know, this is a mechanic. And so then I asked, yes, it is better to store them in the garage. And we were talking about the fact that the mechanics fix vehicles outside. No, they do not fix the vehicles outside. They fix them inside, especially when they have to have a lift. Maybe a battery, something simple like that, they might fix outside. So let's see, repairs. So we need to know exactly how many bays
One
we
minute.
have, where you're going to, for the CNG vehicles, because they have to be stored separately. And let's see, where else was I gonna go? And sure, you have to make sure that they're undercoated properly, so then they don't rot away. And the other thing is, at one time, you were talking about a car wash, a truck wash, because if you don't clean the undercarriage, as we know, the salt eats them away. So when you're going to look at this, you have to look at the factor, if it's gonna be half,
30 seconds.
then you have to clean that undercarriage, because if you don't clean that truck properly, then you can house it any place you want, but that salt is going to eat it up. So if you think I don't know people and I don't know issues like this, I study it very carefully, and I've been studying this, and I asked a professional about this. So I'm not trying to be that I don't want this. I just want to make sure that we're going to build it, we can afford it tax-wise, and we're not going to kill everybody with everything on the plate. And that if you're going to do it, you do it right the first time, and this building lasts. Oh, and by the way, if the Conway Ice wants a second sheet of ice, we sell the land for market value, not a 10-year, not a 99-year lease for $1 a
Time's
year.
up.
I made it in the 3 minutes, didn't I?
No, you did not.
I went over. Okay.
Yeah, you did.
It's okay, 10
If you look up at the clock,
I'm sorry, 10
you'll see it. Thank
Remarks,
you.
remarks by Alderman O'Brien?
Yeah, I would like to comment on the public comment. Madam, you're welcome to follow me around anytime that you want. I am an alderman at large. You are correct. And I go to many parts of the city that you may not really know, and many of my assigned projects. I was down at Crown Hill looking at the problem that was at hand with the I would say, not the homeless, but the unsheltered there. Were you?
Oh, no, I went into the
And
meeting.
the thing is, no, this is not.
no debate, no debate.
Attack me.
So the
Remember-
thing is,
Remember, you need to have decorum in here. I've gone to the mayor. And I'm not even elected.
Madam,
So
please
don't
do
go
if you
after
wish.
me. Decorum.
If-
You tell
please
us
do.
Decorum on you.
all right, I have the right to rebuttal. I have also,
Shame on you.
I have also done a lot of things. The speaker doesn't really know how many times I've gone to meetings at the Public Works facility. I've seen the traffic at several parts of the day, and I think that's verified by Director Cummings and the chairman, Chairman Dow, because he was there with me many times that I go. I know what the traffic is. I know one of the issues with the traffic and concern, we're discussing the BPW a sign to try to help out, because one particular alderman we had to move the building back, and then we had to have a buffer zone with the administration building. So now you don't really see it from the street. And God forbid, the commenter was right. It's a heavily trafficked road. People going to and from Nashua, to Hollis, Milford, or anywhere else. The sign would be a help. And yet, you don't want somebody going into the entrance to the landfill because of the safety hazard, if they went in there accidentally, because there's big trucks moving around in there, and to have somebody turn around, I see that as a potential safety hazard. But I do take umbrage. I'll have the people, at home. I do my diligence. I do read, I do my homework. I have a very strong familiarity with the city. I think my time in the department, and 8 years of being an alderman, that's 43 years. I've done the time in the trench. I've seen the good, bad, and the ugly. So I take kind of umbrage with that, and I'll leave it at that. And want to question my decorum, I'll hand her the Book of Masons. Okay, thank you.
Have a motion?
Yeah, I have the motion. Do I have to? A motion to adjourn.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned at 8:41.